My stepmother played my voice, confessing to theft, but I hadn't spoken in 9 days. The recording sounded exactly like me. My voice, my pauses, my breath. Even the little crack at the end of certain words, the one I hated and my father used to say, made me sound more human than I wanted to admit. My father listened from his hospital bed while my stepmother held his hand and cried. The voice on the speaker said, "I moved the money before Dad could change the trust. By the time they notice, it'll look like a vendor mistake." Everyone in that private hospital room turned to me. The foundation lawyer, 2 board members, my stepmother, her son, my father pale and thin after a stroke, with one side of his mouth still not obeying him the way it used to. They all looked at me like I had just stolen from a dying man. There was only one problem. 9 days earlier, a surgeon had cut a benign polyp off my vocal cord. I had been on strict voice rest ever since. I had not spoken above a whisper in 9 days. My name is Adrian Cole. I was 39 years old when my stepmother stole my voice and used it to bury me in front of my father. The worst part was not the accusation. It was watching my father believe the sound. Not because he wanted to, because it sounded like me. That is a special kind of violation. A forged signature can be challenged. A fake document can be inspected. A stolen check has a route through a bank. But a voice enters people through the same door as memory. It does not ask for permission before it feels familiar. And for one terrible minute, my own father trusted the fake version of me more than the real man standing beside his bed with stitches still healing in his throat. Cole House Foundation was supposed to be the clean thing in our family. My father, Robert Cole, built it after spending 30 years running a construction supply company. He had grown up poor, broken his back twice, watched men lose hands, homes, and pensions because one accident made them inconvenient to everyone except their children. When he sold the company, he used part of the money to create a foundation that helped injured workers and low-income families keep housing while they recovered. Rent bridges, emergency repairs, wheelchair ramps, legal aid, ugly needs practical help. He called it Cole House because he said charity should not sound like a monument. It should sound like shelter. I ran operations. Not because I was the most charming. I was not. Not because I gave speeches well. I hated speeches. I ran it because I knew the files. I knew which landlord always added late fees too early, which contractor overcharged for grab bars, which family needed rent quietly paid, because pride was the only thing they had left. My father trusted me with the boring parts. That was the trust I valued most. Then he married Marlene. Marlene Cole was elegant, controlled, and dangerous in the quietest possible way. She never raised her voice. She never needed to. She could make a sentence feel like a hand closing over your wrist. At first I tried to like her because my father looked less lonely beside her. But Marlene did not want to help the foundation do good work. She wanted the foundation to look good with her name near it. Her son, Bryce, came with her 35, glossy, ambitious, and allergic to useful labor. My father gave him a temporary advisory role with no signing authority. Bryce smiled, thanked him, and learned where the money lived. The trouble began when my father had a mild stroke. He survived, but his speech slowed. His right hand trembled, and Marlene moved into the space around him like fog. She controlled visitor lists. She answered questions meant for him. She told board members he was tired before he said he was tired. I pushed back carefully. "Dad can answer." I wrote on a notepad during one meeting because my voice was already failing from the polyp. Marlene smiled. "Of course, we just don't want to exhaust him." That became her sentence. "We don't want to exhaust him." It sounded like care. It worked like a locked door. My vocal cord surgery was scheduled 2 weeks after Dad's stroke. Dr. Miles Renner removed a benign polyp and gave me one rule in several forms. No normal speaking for 10 days. No calls, no long conversations. Use a tablet. Let the tissue heal. I obeyed because I am good at obeying written instructions. On day 9, Marlene called an emergency foundation meeting in my father's hospital suite. She did not ask me. She informed me. I arrived with a tablet, a folder of pending grants, and a throat that felt like broken glass wrapped in gauze. The room was too full for a recovering patient. My father was propped against pillows. Marlene sat beside him, one hand over his. Bryce stood near the window in a navy blazer, looking solemn and useful. Arthur Vance, the Foundation's outside counsel, sat in the corner with a legal pad. Board members Celia Grant and Malcolm Reed sat stiffly in visitor chairs. I typed on my tablet. "What is this about?" Marlene looked at the screen, then at me. "I think it's better if everyone hears it together." She lifted her phone. "I'm sorry, Robert." My father frowned. The audio began. At first, my brain did not understand the violence of it because the voice was mine. I moved the money before Dad could change the trust. I froze. The voice continued. "By the time they notice, it'll look like a vendor mistake. BrightPath can sit on it until the insurance kicks in." My father closed his eyes. Marlene made a sound like a sob. Bryce whispered, "God, The audio ended. No one spoke. I tried. Pain ripped through my throat, and what came out was not speech. Just a torn whisper. Number. Marlene looked at me with wet eyes. "Adrian, please." I grabbed the tablet. "That is not me." Bryce leaned forward. "Of course you'd write that now." I typed faster. "I did not say that. I can't speak." Marlene turned to Arthur. "We all know he had surgery. That doesn't mean he couldn't record it before." I typed. "When was this supposed to be recorded?" Arthur answered carefully. "The file metadata says Saturday night." Saturday night. 4 days after surgery. I typed. "Impossible." Marlene squeezed my father's hand. "Robert, I don't want to punish him. I want to protect what you built." That was how she did it. She took my father's words and wore them like mourning clothes. I looked at Dad. He would not look away from me, which somehow hurt more. His face was not angry. It was broken. If he had shouted, I could have defended myself against the sound. But he only stared at me as if a bridge he had trusted for years had collapsed while he was standing on it. I typed, "Dad, please, it is not me." His right hand trembled on the blanket. "Oi," he whispered slowly, "Adrian." Then he stopped. Marlene touched his shoulder. "Don't strain yourself." In that moment, I understood her timing. My father could barely speak. I could barely speak. And she had brought a voice into the room that could say anything she wanted. The board suspended me pending investigation before sunset. Not permanently, not publicly, not yet. That was how careful Marlene was. She did not need to execute me in one motion. She only needed to remove me from the controls while she rewired the machine. My foundation email was locked. My signing authority paused. My office access restricted. Arthur sent me a polite letter using words like concern, fiduciary, and temporary. There is nothing temporary about losing your father's eyes. That night I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook because screens made me want to throw things. My throat throbbed. Every instinct in me wanted to call my father force sound through damaged tissue, make him hear the real me. But the real me had been reduced to breath and pain. So I wrote, not to him, to myself. Who benefits? Marlene. Bryce. Why now? Dad was preparing to sign a long-term operating directive naming me permanent executive director with an independent trustee structure after his recovery. What money? BrightPath. I had heard the fake voice say it. BrightPath can sit on it until the insurance kicks in. That was the sentence they should never have included. Oh, the next morning I went to see Nora Cheng. Nora was not the Foundation's lawyer. She was mine. She read the summary on my tablet, then wrote one question on her legal pad. Do you want me to speak out loud, or would that make you feel trapped? I typed speak. Oh, she nodded. They stole your voice because they couldn't make you lie with your own mouth. She tapped the fake confession file. We start with what cannot be faked easily medical impossibility file, origin money movement insurance. I typed, can we prove the voice is fake? Probably, Nora said. But we do not build the case on probably. We build it on contradictions that survive emotion. Nora called Dr. Renner first. He was irritated before she finished the question. Could Mr. Cole have recorded a full-voice confession 4 days after surgery? Nora asked on speaker. If he wanted to risk hemorrhage scarring and permanent damage, maybe he could try. It would sound terrible. Could he sound normal? Number. Could he produce several minutes of steady conversational speech with natural volume breath support and no post-surgical strain? Absolutely not. Did you observe any signs at his Day 7 follow-up that he had violated voice rest? No. Healing was consistent with compliance. Nora looked at me. Good, Dr. Renner added. If someone says he made a clean recording that week, they are either medically ignorant or lying. Nora wrote medically impossible. Next came the audio. Nora brought in Tess Morgan, an audio forensic analyst with steel-toed boots and no patience for ghosts, pretending to be evidence. Tess collected my old charity speeches, voicemails, donor videos, and board recordings. Seeing years of my voice laid out like spare parts made my stomach turn. She opened the confession file and turned my stolen voice into colored lines. Good clone, she said, not perfect. She showed us the repeated breath sample first. The same inhale appeared again and again in different sentences. Humans do not breathe like copy-paste, she said. Then she played the phrase, vendor mistake, from the confession, followed by the same phrase from a training video I recorded 11 months earlier. Same rhythm, same tiny defect, different room. Tess lowered the volume and said, "This is not a confession. This is a puppet wearing your breath." For the first time in days, the lie had edges. Ow. Nora's investigator traced the alleged voicemail. Marlene had told the board it was left on a protected foundation line from my phone. That was false. The call had been routed through a VoIP service. The file was uploaded manually. Most metadata had been stripped, but not well enough. A temporary cache showed the audio was processed through a browser session connected to an IP address at Bryce's apartment building. Bryce was clever enough to use tools, not disciplined enough to clean the floor after the murder. Then Eleanor Price found BrightPath. Eleanor Price, the foundation treasurer, found BrightPath. She had been on vacation when I was suspended, and her first text to me said, "I do not believe convenient scandals." BrightPath recovery consultants had received $280,000 after my father's stroke. On paper, it provided community recovery strategy and housing analysis. In reality, its website was 3 weeks old. Its office was a rented mailbox, and its logo came from Bryce's design account. Oh, the vendor form used a recovery phone number tied to Marlene's private assistant. 2 cash withdrawals followed the payments. One ATM camera showed Bryce in a baseball cap withdrawing $9,000 at 11:14 p.m. Eleanor looked at the image and whispered, "Idiot." But the bigger twist came from the insurance file. Nora found it because of the fake confession's own words. Until the insurance kicks in, Cole House Foundation had an employee dishonesty insurance policy. It existed in case a staff member stole funds from the charity. Marlene had already filed a notice of claim naming me as the suspected dishonest employee. If the claim succeeded, the foundation would receive reimbursement for the money supposedly stolen. BrightPath would keep the original funds. Insurance would replace them. Marlene and Bryce would get paid twice while presenting themselves as the people who saved Robert's legacy from me. That was not theft. Oh, that was theft wearing a rescue uniform. Nora sat back after reading the claim. "She is not improvising," I typed. Number. She planned the accusation, the vendor trail, the audio, and the insurance recovery. She needed you removed before Robert signed the new directive. I typed. And Dad believed her. Nora did not soften the answer. He believed a familiar sound at a vulnerable moment. That is not the same as choosing them over you. It felt the same. But I needed her to be right. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Marlene wanted a vote to remove me permanently as executive director and appoint Bryce as interim operational lead under her supervision. The official reason was continuity during investigation. The real reason was that the first lie had worked long enough for them to try the second. I was still under voice restriction, but Dr. Renner had cleared limited low-volume speech. Nora told me not to use it. Let them forget you can answer with evidence. So I arrived silent. Same hospital suite, same chairs, same too clean air. My father sat in a wheelchair this time, thinner than before. He looked at me when I entered, then down at his hands. That hurt. Marlene wore navy, not black. Black would have been too obvious. Navy said grief with management experience. Bryce stood behind her chair with a binder and a face arranged into reluctant duty. Marlene began. This is painful for everyone. Adrian has served the Foundation for years. But our first responsibility is to protect Robert's work. My hands folded around the tablet. Nora sat beside me and did not open her folder yet. Bryce spoke next. I don't want this role, but someone has to steady the ship. That almost made me laugh, which would have hurt. Marlene turned to me with sorrow sharpened into a blade. If you came here to deny your own voice, please don't make this harder on your father. I did not type. I did not whisper. Nora opened the first folder. Dr. Miles Renner's surgical report, she said. Mr. Cole had vocal cord surgery 9 days before the emergency meeting. The alleged recording was created 4 days after that procedure. Dr. Renner confirms Mr. Cole could not have produced that speech pattern during that period without visible medical damage. His follow-up showed proper compliance with voice rest. Arthur shifted. Marlene said he could have recorded it earlier. Nora nodded. Then the Saturday metadata you provided is false. Marlene's face did not change. Nora placed the VoIP records down. The recording was not a voicemail from Adrian Cole's phone. It was manually uploaded through a VoIP platform. The processing session traces to an IP address associated with Bryce Harlow's apartment. Bryce made a sound. Lots of people live in my building. Tess Morgan stood. She had the calm energy of someone about to dissect a ghost. She played the fake confession. Then she played the repeated breath samples. Once, twice, 6 times. The same inhale pasted into different places. She played the word vendor from the confession and the donor training video. Same acoustic tail. She showed the unnatural room tone, the sliced syllables, the model artifacts around consonants. This recording was generated or assembled from prior samples of Adrian Cole's voice, Tess said. It is not a natural, spontaneous confession. Marlene's eyes filled. Oh, I am not a technical person. I received that file. I believed it. Nora looked at her. From whom? Marlene hesitated. An anonymous source. Bryce stared at the table. Nora opened the financial folder. BrightPath Recovery Consultants received $280,000 from the Foundation after Robert Cole's stroke and before Adrian Cole's suspension. BrightPath's website was created 3 weeks before payment. Its office is a mailbox. Its logo was made under Bryce Harlow's design account. Its recovery phone number belongs to Marlene Cole's assistant. Cash withdrawals followed each transfer. Eleanor Price slid the ATM image forward. Bryce in a cap. Bryce looked at it like it had betrayed him personally. Marlene whispered Bryce. A performance. Not for us. For Robert. Nora did not let the room breathe. Finally, Marlene Cole filed an employee dishonesty insurance notice naming Adrian Cole as the suspected thief. That landed harder than the money. Celia Grant, one of the board members, leaned forward. You filed an insurance claim before the board completed its review. Marlene said I was trying to protect the Foundation. Nora answered, No. You were trying to get the Foundation reimbursed for money routed to a shell vendor connected to you while leaving Adrian Cole as the criminal explanation. Bryce stood. This is insane. You can hire experts to say anything. Metadata can be faked. Nora nodded. You're right. Digital files require support, which is why this next part is useful. She clicked a small remote. The screen on the wall lit up. A support ticket from a voice generation platform. Bryce Harlow had submitted an audio project for troubleshooting under an account tied to his email. He had uploaded the final fake confession. He had also uploaded a raw instruction track by mistake. Nora pressed play. Bryce's real voice filled the room. I created the file from Adrian's donor speech and old voicemails. Mom said once Dad heard Adrian confess, the board would do the rest. The breath sounds are repeating too much. Can you smooth it before we use it? No one moved. Oh, not even Marlene. Oh, Then the room exploded quietly. Arthur closed his eyes. Celia said, "Oh my God." Malcolm Reed stood up from his chair as if he needed physical distance from the recording. My father made a sound. Not a word. A sound of grief finding the correct target. Bryce looked at Marlene. She looked back at him with pure hatred. That was the first honest emotion I had ever seen on her face. Nora stopped the audio. "This is not an accusation," she said. "This is a production note." Marlene tried to recover. Bryce must have misunderstood. He was trying to test. Bryce snapped. "You said it would be enough." The words came out before he could save himself. Marlene turned. "Be quiet." But he was already falling. "You said Robert would never doubt the voice. You said Adrian couldn't talk. You said by the time he got experts, we'd control the board." My father lifted his left hand, weak, shaking. "But enough." "Stop," he said. One word. The whole room obeyed. He looked at Marlene, then Bryce, then me. His eyes were wet. I did not look away this time. The vote to remove me did not happen. Instead, the board voted to suspend Marlene's foundation authority, freeze all Bright Path-related payments, withdraw the insurance claim, and refer the matter to outside investigators. Bryce's access was terminated before he left the building. Arthur resigned 2 weeks later after admitting he had relied too heavily on Marlene's representations during Robert's hospitalization. That is the polite version. The real version is that Marlene lost the room. And for a woman who lived by controlling rooms, that was the first punishment that truly landed. The investigation that followed was ugly and slow. Bright Path accounts were frozen. Insurance fraud investigators got involved. Bryce tried to blame Marlene. Marlene tried to blame Bryce. Both forgot betrayal sounds different when there are no victims left in the room to perform for. My name was cleared publicly after Nora insisted on exact language. Adrian Cole did not misappropriate funds. The audio presented as his confession was fabricated. The Foundation regrets the harm caused. It was not enough. But it was printed. My father asked to see me privately 3 days after the board meeting. I almost said no. People think vindication erases pain. It does not. It gives pain a chair and asks it to sit somewhere official. I went. He was back in the hospital suite, but Marlene's flowers were gone. Her perfume was gone, too. A notepad rested in his lap because writing was easier than speech. For a while, neither of us did anything. Then he wrote with his left hand, "I believed the voice." I took the pen and wrote, "So did everyone." His eyes closed. When they opened, he wrote, "I should have believed my son." That sentence was the one I had wanted. It was also smaller than the wound. I looked at the hand that taught me to use a socket wrench, the hand Marlene held while my stolen voice ruined me. Then I wrote, "Then start now," he cried. Forgiveness did not happen in that room. Something more useful did, a beginning. Marlene thought stealing my voice would make the lie complete. She was wrong. A voice can be copied. A breath can be pasted. A confession can be manufactured. But truth has a body. It has surgery scars. It has timestamps. It has bank trails. It has metadata. It has the shape of a father's hand trembling over a notepad, because he cannot undo what he believed, only decide what he believes next. They used my voice because they could not make me lie with my own mouth. They trapped me inside silence and mistook that silence for weakness. But silence is not empty. Sometimes silence is where evidence gathers itself. And in the end, The 9 days I could not speak became louder than every word they stole from me.